Have you ever met someone who rarely talks about their problems, never asks for help, and always seems to handle everything alone? At first, they might seem emotionally distant, but if you look closer, you'll realize they aren't cold. They were simply raised in a world that taught them to hide their feelings. That's the psychology of Generation X. Meet David, a 49-year-old father. Every morning, he wakes up before sunrise, makes his coffee, and quietly gets ready for work. His teenage daughter often asks, "Dad, are you okay?" David always gives the same answer, "I'm fine." Even on the days when work is stressful, bills are piling up, or he's worried about his family, those two words never change. One evening, after another long day, David sat alone in the garage, staring at an old toolbox that had belonged to his father. It reminded him of childhood. Back then, emotions weren't something people talked about. If he fell and scraped his knee, he was told, "Get up." If he was scared, he heard, "Be strong." Love wasn't expressed with long conversations. It was shown through hard work, sacrifice, and responsibility. Without realizing it, David carried those lessons into adulthood. As the years passed, he became dependable. Friends called him whenever they needed help. His family knew they could always count on him. But there was one person David never took care of: himself. One night, his daughter found him sitting quietly in the dark. She didn't ask what was wrong. She simply sat beside him. After a long silence, she said, "You know, you don't always have to be the strong one." For the first time in years, David didn't know what to say. That simple sentence broke through decades of emotional habits. He realized that strength wasn't about hiding pain. It was about trusting someone enough to share it. This is something many people from Generation X experience. They grew up during a time when independence was praised, and vulnerability was often mistaken for weakness. Many became incredibly resilient, adaptable, and loyal. They learned to solve problems on their own because they often had no other choice. But there was a hidden cost. When people spend years suppressing emotions, they may become experts at helping others while struggling to understand their own feelings. They may appear calm on the outside while carrying silent stress on the inside. The good news is that emotional habits aren't permanent. The brain can learn new patterns at any age. Opening up doesn't erase resilience. It adds to it. Sharing emotions doesn't make someone weaker. It makes relationships stronger. The next morning, David did something different. When his daughter asked, "How are you today?" he paused before answering. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," he smiled and replied, "It's been a difficult week, but I'm getting through it." It wasn't a dramatic confession. It was just one honest sentence. But for David, it was the beginning of a new chapter. The psychology of Generation X isn't just about being independent. It's about understanding why so many learn to stay silent and realizing that real strength isn't carrying every burden alone. Sometimes, the strongest thing a person can do is let someone else stand beside them. So if you know someone from Generation X who rarely talks about their feelings, remember this: silence doesn't always mean they're okay. Sometimes it's simply the language they were taught, and sometimes one caring conversation can change a lifetime of emotional habits.